Showtime. Guys, thank you. Play it forward. Thanks to everybody who's joining us. Play it forward is the title of the show. We've titled it Play It Forward because each show's guests have been played it forward, aka nominated by the prior guest. Today, we have Jessica Silvetti and Ethan Kogan, husband and wife with different last names. Very interesting. And you guys were played it forward by Virginia Novello, or
Yes.
Virginia Novello. Okay, awesome. So, guys, thank you for joining us today. Today's show is going to be a little different and kind of interesting. And I wanted to preface it, as I did with you guys prior to this, starting the call, is saying that everybody, we've been super lucky on Play It Forward. Everybody is a filmmaker of a high caliber in terms of craftsmanship. I mean, the people, as are you guys, obviously, are very capable filmmakers on an artistic as well as technical level. The visual quality, the narrative quality is super high. And there is no reason why, if you are not already, I don't know, maybe professionals making AKA money in the business, or if you're not, there's no reason you should be. The fact of the matter is that the market, like any art market, is very small. There are six big, they call the majors, and the five mini majors. And those 11 studios control 99% of theatrical distribution, and that trickles down to everybody else. So that's just the real deal. You know, the art market is small, and oftentimes people aren't recognized until their, lifetime's over. So, but we all want to sustain ourselves, keep making art because it's such a beautiful experience. And the purpose of this show is to get to the heart of the art and really talk about those universal themes of what, why, and how. So that is a preface. Guys, can you just introduce yourselves, your names, your backgrounds, why you chose to become filmmakers, where you're at in your careers, if you're interested in careers, and just whatever you think's relevant.
Sure. I'm Jessica Silvetti, and I'm actually originally from Mexico City. I was born there, and I came to the States at the age of 7. So I'm fully bilingual. Spanish is my first language.
Nice.
And I began as an actor. I studied in New York, and I think that was my first form of storytelling. And then I was writing a lot as well. And the more I wrote, I realized that I also wanted to direct. And, I think that moving around and having, Spanish culture just has informed some of the work I do, and also loving certain directors like Tim Burton or Jean-Pierre Jeunet, things like that have informed us. But and then Ethan and I met at an audition, but I'll let him talk a little bit about himself so we can then forge how we came together as a team.
Wow, very cool. Hey, and that's awesome. How long have you guys been married?
2.5 years.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
That's great.
We've been a lot longer.
Yeah, we've been together 12 years.
That's very cool. Also my creative partner basically is my wife, and she's a part of the Digipops, which is sponsoring the show and the point of curating content independently and empowering filmmakers to do so. So yeah, she's my right-hand person. So I know what it's like to work with a wife and spouse as a creative partner. So, I mean, it makes for challenges, but certainly overcoming those challenges makes for a stronger relationship.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we write together, we direct together. Just to go back, I was born and raised in LA. I'm an Angelino native. I know that's a rare thing, or at least people say it is, but we do exist.
What's it called? Angelino native?
Yeah, Los Angelino.
Okay, cool. I've never heard that.
So I grew up here, and I studied acting. I went to school at the University of Michigan, brief stint in London, back to LA, and then we actually met at an audition. And that's how our relationship started, and we just kind of kept together kind of on an acting basis to start. Friendship grew, and then we started working together more and more. And then we decided at one point, screw this, we kind of want to film our own stuff, put ourselves in it. We ended up liking that so much more. We realized kind of that's the path we wanted to forge and follow.
Yeah, the acting just wasn't as fulfilling. I mean, it's still, fun, but we felt like, oh, this feels more like in our skin. It just feels more natural.
The story I like to tell is I was at an audition and I was waiting in line to get into someone else's project to beg to be a part of it, and I felt like a sheep. And I literally looked on the wall, and there was this art piece that was just a canvas, and it was sheep fur, And I was like, okay, if that's not a sign, I don't know what else is.
Wait, say that again, because you just cut out. So there was an art piece, and what was it?
Okay, so I was waiting in line to audition for some commercial or independent project, and I felt like I feel like a sheep just waiting in line for the slaughter. Absolutely. And on the wall it was a canvas, and it was like just sheep fur.
Oh, right on.
All right,
that's great.
That's a sign.
That's great. Totally. I think it's awesome. I think it's a new trend. I think you guys are part of the cutting edge. And I think filmmakers making their own shit, especially artists and actors making their own shit, whether it's a writer, director, filming and using their tools around them to make it and put it out there, is the absolute new trend. I mean, filmmaking has changed as a medium. You have way more control. The budgets have changed. You don't need it. You don't need a budget. Really, all you need is creativity, and you can make a beautiful look and feel. So actors, man, I've always had like such sympathy for them, because you guys are used and abused, and it's ridiculous. So did you guys like have a love scene?
When we met, at the audition we went in for, where we met, we were supposed to play a couple. Neither of us got the part, but we
that wasn't a love scene.
Yeah, but it wasn't a love scene. But
we first project that
we did do a love scene in one project, but yeah, it wasn't like anything.
Okay, because I'm imagining you guys never met. You had like this love scene. You didn't know what to do. It was awkward, and then it was like beautiful, and sparks were flying, and then here we are. Okay,
we were just in a room waiting to audition, and that's how. Yeah. Wasn't in the movies.
Okay, cool.
We held some conversation and went from there.
You started with a conversation?
Yeah, and just went from there.
That's pretty cool too. That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, I was, describing, we'll start in Absentia, and we're going to use that work to really ask our filmmakers, you guys, 3 questions. First focuses on why the inspiration, like the heart of the inspiration to make that particular work. It's such a pain in the ass, such a bitch, cute dog, making art. And is that a girl, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, she just had surgery yesterday, so she's very groggy.
What's up with her?
Cracked her tooth.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's funny, once you're a dog owner for a little while, you can start telling the sexes apart just by the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, you could tell. Yeah, it's a girl.
Yeah. So anyway, it's such a bitch to make films. It's really hard, technically to pull it off. You need so many people. There's so much thought and logistics that go into it. So like, I want to get into the inspiration of like what you connected thematically with in Absentia, and then we'll drill to what did you learn on or off set, like, about making that work, about yourselves. What did you learn about filmmaking? So this is knowledge that, is relevant to a filmmaker or not to a filmmaker. What did that exploration of that theme teach you? And then the last question is, how did you change? Because if you're not changing as an artist, you're fucking around. You're not living what the point of that exploring the human condition is, and bringing that out to people and yourselves in a beautiful way. So that's what we believe here at Digipops, and so really pushing for that. How did you change? So that said, let's start with why.
I honestly think it's a previous project that we worked on. We had an opportunity to do a short film called Poor Man's Mermaid, which was an adaptation of Clay McLeod Chapman's short story called Poor Man's Mermaid. And I think that just opened us up to that genre of like the eerie, foreboding type of Twilight Zone storytelling.
Yeah, and it's something in that, I think part of, at least half of our collective creativeness leans towards the, brooding side. And we wanted to explore that sort of universe.
Okay.
that world, that little, community of that feel, so to speak. And so we kind of started brainstorming about little vignettes and what a world would look like where, something was missing. Whether it is, the loss of the missing absence of love, or the absence of confidence, or things like that, in each of the stories. And these 5 little vignettes popped up in our minds.
Yeah, but it was also a combination, because after we had done Poor Man's Mermaid, we were talking to a few people, and they really loved the way that short came out, and they're like, that's so interesting. So the reception of that, I think, also made us want to go in that direction, to be honest. You're like, oh, this audience is really enjoying this. Yeah. They're asking more about this. I think we're tapping into something that together, as Ethan was saying, collectively we can do well. So we also started thinking about that, and looking at some of the stories we had.
Jessica, sorry to cut you off, but let's dive a little deeper, because I get the containter, right? So the container is this like Twilight Zone sci-fi mystery, right? So everybody's into mystery, whether it's, that's kind of the narrative arc, right? We're looking to understand where this leads us. And if it's a happy place, it's a comedy. And if it's a sad place, it's a tragedy. I mean, that's like the basic of it. But Ethan started talking a little bit more about the theme. So not just the container of the style or the genre, but the theme. So what's the contents inside that box? And you guys are exploring loss, right? And now here's the $1 million question, where as artists, you've got to, tear off your shirt and show me your heart. So why is loss relevant? What is it about loss in your lives that made you want to explore it?
Well, I mean, you could first go loss and actual death, but life is always, not to sound really depressing, but you're always changing. There's always some sort of loss, if you think about that too. There's also gain, if you want, but like we focused on the loss aspect of things.
Well, I think that's kind of prevalent in everyone's life, regardless. There is always something that you're lacking, or something that, everybody's striving for something. Everybody is missing something one way or another, however you want to look at it.
Can we say coping with loss? So is that the themes you're exploring, is coping with loss, or were you not even at a point of coping with loss?
I think
you mean personally?
Yeah, you mean personally, or in the story?
Thematically through the story.
I mean, I definitely think that's one of the themes.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were a few, others, but I think mostly, like we said, we were both trained as actors. And I think a lot of that informs you as a person, because you really have to, as an actor, you have to look at yourself. You have to be aware of yourself. You have to be aware of your weaknesses, your strengths, all of that.
You have to strip down and I mean that, just open up, and the vulnerability, and just really go into dark, deep places. So, yeah.
And I think that has and will always inform us as filmmakers. And I think with this project, I think just so happens we were at a point where we were really focused on maybe what we were personally lacking, either professionally or financially, or so many things that we, threw that into these stories. It fueled these stories. Each of these characters, if you do, really want to strip it away, they are missing at least one thing, either tangible, like a physical thing, or intangible. But yeah,
Awesome. So that leads kind of well into the next question, which is, what did you learn? What did either the characters learn, or what did you learn through the exploration of loss through your characters?
Well, there's so many different layers, and I think that one thing is, as you're doing, you learn. As you write it, you learn something. Then as you're shooting it, you're discovering all these different layers. And also when you're working with your actors, they're bringing different ingredients that you're like, oh shit, sorry, I don't know if we can.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
But you're like, I didn't even think about that, or this, and they're bringing these different forms of life to it that just blow you away. So then once you're editing as well, you're seeing all these different things. You're like, oh wow, I didn't even see it from that angle. I mean, there's just, it keeps like an onion. It keeps like just different layers and revealing itself in different ways. So that's always cool. And people's interpretation of it or reaction to it when they see it as an audience.
Totally. That's the beauty of it. So like pick one of the petals off the lotus flowers and let's just dive into what is one of the most resonant things that you learn throughout that whole process about loss or yourself through the exploration of loss in your characters.
Yeah, I mean, first, my instinct, first off, to talk about learning was to take a step back, actually on the production level.
Yeah.
It was probably the biggest thing that I think we kind of had done. So you learn a lot about yourself when you're in control of a certain amount of people and in control of a vision, for better or for worse. So
it's more like also responsibility for it, just not like the control, but the lack of control as well, and the responsibility you bear.
Yeah. And especially when problems come up that you didn't plan for, how you deal with things at a moment's notice. So I think we definitely learned a lot of things about ourselves being in control and in command of the ship, and that for however the process might have been, writing and pre-production, we definitely can come together and do that. And I did learn how fucking hard it was to produce something from scratch. I mean, we were literally doing like 5 different jobs.
Oh yeah.
I literally had the boom pole at times.
Oh, yeah.
It was sound mixing. I mean, it was one,
totally.
So that, just take a step back, all encompassing production level, but
also I would say like,
so
yes, the difficulty, but also in a way like the humility, because how many people come on board and help, and it's like, what you were saying, it was the biggest project we had worked up until that point. So we did have a crew. It was still small compared to like big budget films, but just the kind of a humbling experience as well at the same time. A huge learning experience, but yeah.
And sorry, Ethan, go ahead.
No, I was just going to dive into thematically, but if you had something you wanted to.
No, I hit it.
As far as the terms of loss or the absence of, it's tough because I kind of don't know if there's ever going to be a, tying it up with a ribbon with these sorts of themes. I think it's kind of, if I learned anything, it's that these types of issues kind of will always persist. They will always be there. You're dealing with loss in one way or another, and kind of to always expect that. However much you might strive for everything, money, fame, fortune, all that, you're always going to be missing something.
Well,
and if it's like,
that's beautiful, man. And I mean, that's what you guys are saying, and what you made your film about. And when I mean what you guys are saying is, Jessica, you just said, time is a process of loss, right? Well, it could be a process of loss. It could be a process of gain. You're gaining minutes that are ticking off your life, and you're closer to death. Maybe that you're gaining, who knows? Maybe we don't know. Yeah. But what's scary to us as humans is the unknown, right? The unknown, and things that are either out of control or absent in our lives that we think we need to. Let's roll both of those into the unknown, right? So in absentia, the unknown. And so humans can respond to the unknown in one of several ways. Both of those ways can be broadly categorized into fear as one category, or into acceptance as the other category, right? So, and that I think is where you're thematically playing with. And like I was telling you guys, prior to we started the call, like I was watching the vignettes that I watched all sequenced together, but that are going to be featured as separate vignettes. And, I'm watching them and, understanding that, I mean, they're all visually like compelling. I mean, great job. They're super strong, and they're narratively strong as well. And my response being awful critic that I am. And, you know, I'm like, okay, all right, okay. And then, like I said to you guys, you know, I went, like, took a break. I'm doing something else. I'm watching this guy, Alan Watts, and the title of his talk is How to Trust the Universe, right? And then he goes into the title of his talk, and it's all about control. And then I'm looking back on your film, and I'm understanding each of these people are different, dealing with circumstances that are out of control, right? So how does that relate to what you told me thematically, which is like they have an absence or a lack of something that they're trying to get, right?
Yeah.
Or they want if they're not trying to get.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I was clearing my throat. Excuse me. Yes.
I think that's 100% on the nose. And, you know, like, there are, like we said, many layers to this. So that is definitely one of the themes that is constant throughout. Loss and control kind of go hand in hand, because you don't always have control. You don't always have everything. You're always lacking something. You're never in control. It's like I always say, like, always know there's always someone smarter than you or better than you at something. You're never going to be the smartest or best. And that's the best way to kind of have a little humility, I believe, or at least my own personal opinion. Excuse me.
Right.
Yeah, but what you were talking about too,
Wow.
with the loss, I also think it's about the audience. Like, we don't like force feed them or exactly tell them what they should think. Like the experience you had, you know, after a while walking away, you're like, oh, I kind of get this, or the interpretation, like what the comment Ethan made about, like, neatly tied bows. Like, one of the ways we typically work or do our projects is we don't have neatly tied bows. We do like our audience to have their own interpretation of certain things. I mean, some things definitely, like, there's a definite end and you see what that is, but there's portions within the story that could be, you know, how you interpreted something could be different than somebody else. And we like that gray area to a point, because it's going to, you know, have a different, it's going to resonate differently in each person.
That being said, I'm sure from here until the end of time, we'll always look back at a project and be like, yeah, should have cut 5 minutes there, or, oh, we could have done that. I mean, you can always better something, and you can always rearrange something when you're looking back on it. But I think your experience with this project is probably one of the best audience reactions we could have hoped for as filmmakers, because when we see a film or when we see a project that we love, one of the things that we graded on is that, how does it stick with us later? Does it come up? Can we think about it later? And so
it's a great compliment. So thank you. Like,
yeah, totally. It resonated. Yeah, and I thought about it outside of the experience. So yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like a heady thing, like someone has to think about it because they're like, oh, well, I didn't get this or I didn't get that. But it's something that created an emotion or feeling that stayed with you, that came back, you know, later on.
Totally. Especially in this day and age of media, where most people want the immediate gratification, the immediate answer with everything. We definitely are kind of separate from the pack in that regard. In that, you know, we want to challenge the audience a bit. We want to make them think. We want to bring up certain themes that maybe not hit them over the head with. And some people won't stick with some people.
Well,
yeah.
To me, that's a way that you are coping with the unknown, is that you're looking to get comfortable with the gray and accept that level of subjectivity and be comfortable in it.
Yeah, I would say 100%. Yeah.
Cool. And it's interesting how that informs your art, you know, and how you create and what you're creating.
Yeah. And I know you.
This loop.
Yes, a loop.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, within Absentia itself, it's exactly a loop. Like the way we did it, it's 5 episodes, and even though each episode stands alone, we did this bumper that cycles through to the next episode. So an audience, once it's out, they could start at any episode, and it'll cycle them back to the beginning. So it's a loop in itself too, the way it was actually, you know, formatted or designed. Yeah.
And so I'm sorry, Ethan, do you have any other thought you wanted to share?
I did, but I lost it.
Okay. If you think of it, we'll
Yeah,
come back to it. Let me know.
yeah.
All right. So last question, and getting to the loop basically is the last question is how have you guys changed? What have you learned?
Oh,
How are you
well,
different?
yeah. That's what I was going to come around to, because I think getting used to that gray area, like you were talking about, um, is also dealing with constant change, and you're always constantly going to be evolving. Just the way society's evolving, just the way a relationship evolves. You can't be so stuck into the same routine, because you're going to break something. Something's going to break. Something's not going to work. You got to get used to be malleable and used to that change and that um, evolution, so to speak, of life and everything. I know that's a very general,
No,
broad thing, but
I think the fact that you describe it as an evolution, the difference between evolution and, evolution suggests the flow of change, a natural order of things, and resistance is getting stuck. That seems to be an
yeah,
unnatural part of life. And it seems that we are still, 100% organic matter that flows with the evolution of life. And that's the natural order of our development, of our growth,
yeah,
and
Mhm.
accepting that process would seem to be in line with evolution. That's.
yeah. I mean, it can. I mean, the more you start talking, the more we learn about matter in the universe and things. I mean, you can get depressed, or you can get excited. There's just so much that we don't know, and then you think about these little specks. I mean,
Totally.
I can get into completely off
Dude,
topic,
go, go, go.
but
Yeah, I mean, just the dark matter and this and that. I mean, we've kind of touched upon that in some of our other projects too. Yeah, it's something that's really just, you can go so far, and just in a, as a creative too, because there's obviously things that are scientifically based, but you could also just go anywhere with your imagination and kind of take off from these things that you're like, well, what if this or what if that? So it opens up this whole um, book of possibilities that you can kind of write stories and create from.
I think a lot of the problems we see today have to deal with resistance. Resistance to change, resistance to evolution.
Stagnation, like what you were saying, getting stuck. It's like,
Yeah,
dead water. Like what
when
does that create?
right when the entire universe is constantly changing and evolving. I mean, it's not this stuck thing. I don't know. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe people are, maybe flat earthers are, maybe still thinking like everything's just stuck. It doesn't move. That's the way it is. I think once you become uh, aware of and informed and accept that fact that dealing with things like loss and change and movement and evolution, you know ideally society can get there, and that would be the utopian society, so to speak. I don't know.
But another thing also in a different direction that, for instance, I learned from this project as well, is just really paying attention to, what stories you want to tell. Like, all this is fun and exciting and all the possibilities that you could all go in, but also how do you ground certain things? How do you tell stories that are also not so in the ether or out there that certain audiences won't connect with?
So how do you do it?
So sorry, what was that?
How do you do it?
Well, I mean, one thing for me that I think I'm also with my writing, because we write together, sometimes we also write separately, exploring, for me, for instance, a few themes or characters that are more tied to my culture. I mean, I wasn't born here, and so things like that. So that's something I've also been exploring with some things I'm writing, and also we talk about that too. Just both of us. I think one of the reasons we really connected when we first started dating too is, um, at the end of the day, this crazy world we all live in and all these unknowns. we're very much about families and traditions and like your loved ones and all that. So grounding it in that as well. So even though in Absentia is all about loss and all these people missing all these things, there's also that other side of, how do you cope with all that, but when you have a foundation and family. So those are some things too that I feel the growth for me as well, wanting to explore that about, because these people are characters in an Absentia, most of them are alone. If you saw that, they're mostly alone. And now I think we're also exploring more about still dealing with certain themes like that, but people that are more united and experiencing those things together. So I think that's another way that, I grew or learned or wanted to explore something a little different.
I think connecting, obviously you have to connect with an audience, or you're just making movies to watch in your garage by yourself. There is that argument, don't get me wrong. Someone can just make films for the craft and for their own enjoyment. That can work too. But there is an audience aspect as well. So that is the $1 million question. How do you make something fulfilling your own art and also getting audiences to watch it at the same time? I don't think there is a definitive answer for that. I don't think there ever will be. Me personally, you have one. What is?
Well, seriously, then the definitive answer for me is if an artist is making the work that is outside of judgment, right? So you're not thinking about an audience; you're outside of judgment. And you're going in, and everything that we've just discussed is an exploration of the outer through the inner, or an exploration of the inner through the outer, however you want to put it. But I think it's both simultaneously, right? And how do you find outer and inner? And we can do that too, relatively easily. But to answer the question, I think if you're working in an environment out of judgment, so outside of your own judgment, as well as an audience's judgment, you will be more in tune with the natural order of the heartbeat of the mystery that you're exploring.
It's authenticity. It ends up being genuine, authentic, getting into that. Yeah, exactly. I think when you're writing and rewriting, yes, there's judgment, but one of the ways I love to approach writing is like what I call like, I know a lot of people, a vomit draft. I just write. I just write. And then I go back, because I feel like at that moment, I don't hinder myself with, oh no, that doesn't sound right. Or maybe that doesn't work there. I just allow it to like pour out, and then I'll go back to that. And I think that's something that is helpful for me, but I think that could be helpful as well. Obviously you get to set, you want to be prepared, but I think when you're exploring and brainstorming, just imagining what that world will be, I think there's a lot of authenticity that can come from that, just allowing yourself to feel it and imagine it without limitations, and then you can sculpt.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, it was a pleasure speaking to you. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. It was great to meet you. To more continued exploration of the mystery.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Great conversation.
Thank you. You guys as well, man. Thank you so much. I look forward to more of your work. I look forward to sharing this with our community. And do you guys have any, final parting thoughts or anything that you want to share?
Just thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation too. I had no, idea it would go in this direction, but it was definitely very, very fun. So thank you for that.
And we'll let you know. When we haven't released in Absentia, it's still kind of going to a bunch of festivals. Hopefully, middle of this year, we can let you know, and you can send it out to the community when it's all posted.
We will. Awesome, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and leave us a like and/or comment. It makes a big difference. Play It Forward is brought to you by Digipops, where we're building a community to put film and filmmaker discovery in your hands. Here, filmmakers and fans, the creative class, recognizes each other fairly and transparently through a community-curated film festival each quarter. It's coming soon. Thank you.